USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com, featuring conversations with college hockey coaches and players and journalists who cover the sport.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. It's now the 10th season at Penn State for head coach Guy Gadowsky, and in that time, he has built a very successful program.
And joining us now, the head coach of Penn State, Guy Gadowsky. Guy, welcome to the program, first off, but welcome back to State College. You had a nice road trip last week to Nashville for a fantastic game against North Dakota. It has to be a thrill for your players to get to play in an atmosphere like that.
I think it was a thrill for our whole program. It was a lot of fun. I think it's a great experience on its own. Obviously, you want to hope the experience will provide dividends down the future if you're fortunate enough to get to play again in one of those venues in postseason. But as an event on its own, it was fantastic. As you know, North Dakota fans are great. They're a lot of fun to play in front of, and it was a really good time.
Your team put forward a really nice effort that night. Jumped out to a 2-goal lead, never let it slip. And North Dakota had some charges, and they tried to come back on you. And that's a very good North Dakota team, we know. But your team hung in there and ended up walking away with a 6-4 victory. Take us a little bit through that game and the momentum swings that were going on.
Yeah, you summed it up very well. I mean, we got out to a pretty good start and played well. And got ahead, and then we got into some penalty trouble. And if it wasn't for some good killing and obviously some great goaltending by Oscar Audio, I think things would have been different. But give the guys a lot of credit. They were able to hang on. We certainly have to do a better job in terms of staying out of the box. But aside from that, we managed the momentum pretty well, and we managed the crowd pretty well. And because of that, it was a lot of fun and a really good win.
You mentioned penalty kill. That was strong on the night. The power play, 3 power play goals in the game. I look at your special team numbers right now. You're, a month into the season, penalty kills, killing almost at 90%, 88.2, and then the power play over 26%. I know that's always been kind of a big part of what you guys do is strong special teams, but what do you like about the special teams at this point?
Well, I'll start on the other side. I'll tell you what I don't like. I mean, the killing, the percentage is all right, but the number of times we kill is way too many, way too many. And it's something that we have to figure out as a group, and certainly our leadership has to figure it out, and it has to trickle on down to all of us. So that's our number one concern right now. Yeah, I think we've done a pretty good job on the specialty teams, but boy, we're killing way too much, and we know that's something that has to be addressed. So we're going to try to do that. But as far as the good side of it, I really think it's been by committee. Like, it hasn't been one penalty killing unit or one power play unit. It's been a lot of units, and a lot of younger players have gotten some pretty good minutes and got a lot of good experience on it. So we feel pretty good about everything with it going forward.
I want to talk about a couple of individual players, and Kevin Wall, we'll start there. He had 10 goals coming into it this season over his first 2 years at Penn State. He has 6 already. What's changed in his offensive game?
I don't know if it's anything that changed, but I think he is a great example to every I guess hockey player, but probably even more than an athlete that is impatient. He was a guy that came in and with high expectations, and I don't think his transition to Big Ten hockey was as quick as he thought. And we had a really good team, so it was difficult to get in the lineup. But he was so good about everything. Like, he didn't pout. He worked hard. He kept on doing exactly what the coaching staff and our strength coaches talked about. And he came back every year. He's come back a better athlete and a more confident athlete because of it. And he wasn't at all impatient. He really took his medicine and learned from it. And because of that, I mean, it's guys like that approach development that way that I think everybody is really happy when they see them have success. And I don't think it's much of a change. I think it's just him getting better and better at what he does.
Another part of your junior class, Connor Mcguire, he puts in 2 the other night against North Dakota, his first 2 goals of the season. Do you feel like he's taking a step forward as well?
Offensively, he's always been a guy that has been a really, really big part of your team. Like, he's one of those guys that doesn't have to score a goal to be a huge part of your success. And really, I think he works so hard and does such a good job in both ends of the rink that's again, in a different way, it's really good to see guys like that be rewarded with offensive success. But he's someone that, the coaching staff would always wonder when he's going to break out, because he's great all over the ice. That's absolutely his number one talent, I guess, so to speak, or attribute. But certainly it's no one's surprised at how many pucks are going in the net for him right now.
Getting some home games underway this year, getting fans back into what I think is the loudest arena in college hockey, Pegula Ice Arena. What did that feel like for you and the team?
Well, first of all, I can tell you, Terry Pegula will appreciate you saying that. That was, I can't tell you how many times I heard him say that when the building was being built, when the arena was being built, that he wanted it to be loud. And so he appreciates that very much, I'm sure. And because of that and the great atmosphere, it is different for us. It's different. It is much different playing this year. It's much more fun, not only for the players, the coaches, for everybody. It's just way more fun, I got to admit. And because of that, it's a good time. It just makes going to the rink that much easier during the week. And then you look forward to it that much more on the weekend. This
offseason was marked by fifth-year players and transfers. You didn't have a whole lot in either case, one transfer from what I can see. How did you as a team and as a staff approach this season?
Yeah, we looked at it, and obviously it's new, so there's really not a lot of data or information to fall back on. But what we decided is that we weren't just going to jump at anything. Like if we were going to do it, it was going to be for specific reasons that filled specific holes and specific problems. And that's exactly what we did with the fifth year guys coming back for us. Honestly, it's so perfect because of what they bring. Clayton Phillips, obviously loads of talent, controls a game. For us back there, I mean, really, really important on defense. And then Adam Pilowitz is equally as important in very different ways. First of all, he can play both forward and defense, and he's been doing that. Like, it's not that he can, he's been relied on for it. But his biggest asset is just the person he is. He is the ultimate teammate. You ask any of our alumni who the ultimate teammate is, and I promise you his name is going to be brought up in every conversation. And because of that, and where we were in a program to make sure that our culture got back to where it was before COVID, he might truly be the most important player on our team at this point. So, and as far as the transfers go, it was the same deal. We weren't just going to just go get anything. It was going to be for specific reasons. And we certainly wanted to make sure they're a great fit as a person and as a teammate, and as a student, and as a Penn Stater. We weren't just going to go get a hockey player. And so that's what we did.
We've talked to a couple of coaches who have had a little apprehension about what happens in May when it becomes, quote unquote, free agency season. And I'm sure retaining players who are part of the culture of your program is important. But do you have some thoughts on what things might be like come May and things kind of open up again?
Not really. I have curiosity, but I don't, there's not a lot of information to fall back on. So I don't have a lot of thoughts, but I'm curious. I'm not going to make any predictions. I think it's obviously going to be a little different than we're accustomed to, but I don't know what way it's going to fall and for how volatile it's going to be and for how long. So no, don't have a lot of thoughts, just a lot of curiosity.
We'll have more with Penn State's Guy Gadowsky in a moment.
This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from US College Hockey Online.
We're back with Penn State head coach Guy Gadowsky. This is now your 10th season at Penn State, eclipsing 7 years at Princeton and 5 at Fairbanks. And that was remarkable to me. I still think of your program as new. Maybe just getting older, the time flies faster. But earlier this year, we talked to Arizona State's Greg Powers, also starting a program and having a lot of success. And he described the situation at Penn State with the funding from Terry and Kim Pegula as being ideal, and his situation is being realistic, and then maybe some other schools trying to take a cost-sensitive approach to things. But setting investment aside, what kind of things did you learn and have you learned about starting a program and getting to a level of success that maybe other schools looking to grow a program might be able to draw from?
I can only talk about our experience with it. And I can tell you it was vital that we had so many good people, because there's so many little aspects of it that you really don't anticipate. And I'm talking about things like just the compliance implications moving from club to NCAA that you don't really think about, but are vital to make sure you do it right. And so that's one example. Obviously, there's a lot going on. You're building an arena. You're trying to build a staff. You're trying to build a team. So there's a lot of moving parts. And at least from our experience, we just had so many good people that were so excited to get this going and so excited to help out that's really what a lot of our success came from. So I don't know if that's very similar to other programs or not. But for Penn State, I can tell you it was absolutely not only success by committee, but by community as well. It was just a great support by everybody in the community, and not only specific hockey alumni, but Penn State alumni. And it was, it absolutely took a village to make this one happen.
A lot of people speculate about expansion of programs in general, and then also in the Big Ten. I guess I'm just asking kind of a general question, your thoughts on expanding your conference and maybe how big the overall landscape of Division I hockey can grow to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very optimistic about it. And, we talked about Mr. Pegula being very happy to hear about how you feel about the noise in his building, but he'd be very happy. I think another one of his initiatives was to be a catalyst for other programs to jump into Division I hockey, and specifically some of the bigger schools. And that I'm very optimistic about it. I think what you've seen with Arizona State, how successful they've been, and LIU coming right away. Great to see, St. Thomas jump in. I think I'm hoping that they're all catalysts for different types of schools to jump in. So I am optimistic about that. I think it's a great experience. It's been wonderful for our community and wonderful for our university. So when you talk about expansion and moving on, I look at it very optimistically. When you talk specifically about the Big Ten, I feel similar, that optimistic that we get Big Ten institutions that are going to do this. And I think that's important. I think we've been very fortunate that Notre Dame is a very like institution and brings a lot of their own stock to the game, so to speak. So I do think that I look forward to that. I do understand why, and it's not at a coaching level by any means. It's more of at a presidential level and provost level that, they may want to make sure that it's the right fit. As
you talk about the Big Ten on the ice, I'm trying to handicap this conference this year, and it's getting a little bit more challenging. Every single year, I look up and down, and I know that you have some powers in there. You've got Minnesota that a lot of the coaches like preseason. You have Michigan with 7 first-round draft picks. Notre Dame is, under Jeff Jackson has always been strong. I saw Michigan State a couple of weeks ago out east, and they looked like a pretty good team. Ohio State, yourselves. There's no nights off now in this Big Ten. I mean, this conference has always thought that they would be strong, but it feels like now you are putting forward 7 of the best teams in college hockey.
Yeah, and it's exhausting. I got to tell you, so Andrew Mcguire, who was one of our volunteer coaches last year, the volunteer coach, put together, he came to me, he said, I've been looking at something, I've been putting together, looking at different conferences. He goes, man, Big Ten is really, really hard to win in. The parity is so close. And I remember talking to Danton Cole after 2 years ago. I think we won Penn State. We did win the regular season before COVID. And he mentioned to me, he goes, man, that was a big goal at Michigan State in overtime, because if you didn't score that goal, there would have been 5 teams tied for second. And that's the case. Like that's how close it is. Yeah, you really don't, when you go back and you hear things like that, you're like, wow, like it is just so thin. And I think I'd like to think that that's a pattern around college hockey. Like we're not the only conference that has that, but boy, when you look at the statistics like that about specifically the Big Ten and how close it is, man, it's exhausting. I think, look, it's great for development. It's certainly great for the fans, that's for sure. But boy, it can be exhausting.
Does that put a lot of pressure on almost every Friday night? Because you're going to think about you want to get a split minimally out of every weekend. You need to take 4 or 5, 6 points out of every weekting. And if you get a 0 on every Friday night in these 2-game series, it puts a lot of pressure on a team.
That's exactly what I meant by exhausting. Exactly. Like mentally, it is very stressful. I think, every game you want to win no matter what you play, but it's almost like you're in a case of you can't lose on these weekends. Like it is stressful because as Dan Cole pointed out, like one goal make the difference between, a championship and being in, a 5-way tie down the road. So it's stressful. It's stressful yet exciting, if I can say that.
Your Penn State team will open up Big Ten play this week, traveling to Columbus, Ohio, and facing the Buckeyes team. We know what that means in football, but in hockey, it's been a pretty good rivalry and battle over the years as well. What do you typically expect from an Ohio State team?
Yeah, well, Raleigh, Coach Rawlik is awesome. He's done a great job with the entire program, but I think he's a great job with just the team, how they play. Like, I think we were talking the other day about the most competitive, tough games here in this arena. And I think that the games with Ohio State are always brought up. Like, his teams just play so hard. And so I think they're fun games to play. And they're you certainly know you've been in a hockey game. I'll tell you that. And that's what we expect. There's differences in our program and differences in theirs, and it's early, but I guarantee the identity of a Coach Rawlik team isn't going to change. They're going to play unbelievably hard. And when we're done with it, win or lose, you're going to know you're in a hockey game.
Well, it's the Penn State Nittany Lions. They are 6-1 out of the gate this season, coming off a great win over North Dakota. And Guy Gadowsky, it's such a pleasure always to chat hockey with you. We could do this all day, but thanks for your time. Good luck this weekend, safe travels, and obviously good luck the rest of the way.
I appreciate that, Jim. Thank you very much, guys.
That's Penn State's Guy Gadowsky. As I mentioned to Guy in the interview, as I was preparing for this, I was kind of surprised to see 10 years at Penn State. And that's pretty good head coach longevity when you add in 7 years at Princeton and 5 at Alaska Fairbanks. That's 22 years in a row. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when you said 10. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. I get, again, I think you kind of allude to the fact that as we get older, time kind of flies on you. And that's certainly happened in this case. But, every place he has gone, he has had success, really good success up at Alaska. Then Princeton, he took them, kind of from the bottom right into the middle to the top of the Ivy League. And then, a real nice job here at Penn State. And he mentioned it, the season that got canceled, they were the regular season champions in the Big Ten and NCAA tournament appearances, and really good teams that he put through the NCAA tournament that, came just short of a Frozen Four appearance a few years back. I mean, he's had some great success and a real pleasure to talk to too, because he's got, a real eye for the game and a hockey mindset. You love to see coaches that you can tell he just breeds hockey but does it in a professional way. He also is in a big university where he's not the big fish. He's the little fish in a big pond there, or a smaller fish, let's say, than say, football and basketball. But he operates with professionalism and has success on a big stage on a very large school.
One of the things that we can't observe except from a distance is what the culture is of a team. And programs that are able to retain players and have players interested in coming back for an extra year probably have a very good culture. We heard from that from Scott Sandlin at Minnesota Duluth. It seems to me that with the so-called free agency coming up, that Gadowsky admitted he's kind of curious about how it's going to work out, that building a really solid and strong culture around a program is going to be a huge part of retaining players and being successful going forward. Not that it hasn't been in the past, but it becomes more so.
I think you've hit a nail on the head right there, because if you don't have that strong culture, if you don't have players that want to come to the rink every day, if it becomes a chore for them, if the season feels like it's a drag, even if you're a successful team, you're going to have some of your high-end players look for better opportunities elsewhere. And those opportunities will exist. If you've got a first-line center or a first-line forward, say, who puts up points at your program but doesn't like the way that you run things, he will jump ship. And that's just a reality. And that's the danger that coaches go through right now. And I think that, for so many years, it was about which players are going to leave and go to the pros, and coaches that knew that they had good players, but knew that they didn't have tomorrow's NHL talent in the locker room, always felt a sense of security. Well, my guys aren't going to, I don't have a first or a second rounder here. They're not going to jump ship. Well, now you're seeing some players that are undrafted, but prove to be talents. They jump ship and they make it so much more difficult on a coach, so much more difficult on a program.
You also asked Guy about how tight things are top to bottom in the Big Ten. You could really say that about every conference. And each weekend, you're not looking at a win, loss, or a tie. You're looking at the extra points in there. You could come away with 1 point, 0 points, 6 points on a weekend. And then even overtime wins only count just a slight bit more for the winner versus the loser when it comes to pairwise rankings, though that little tiny bit may be the difference between getting in and out. But it really has put the pressure on even greater to get 4, 5, 6 points out of a weekend.
Yeah, it was kind of what I was highlighting, where Friday nights become this really critical moment for every coach, or where maybe it's Thursday, Friday, you're playing Thursday, Saturday, whatever it might be. The first game of a 2-game series becomes so critical because if you lose that one, you're in desperation mode to make sure you don't have a lost weekend. And when you're talking 6 points available, you can watch yourselves. If you put up 2 zeros in a span of, say, 4 weeks, you can watch your team go from right in the top to the middle, even to the bottom of the pack of a small conference like the NCHC or the Big Ten, where you only have 7 or 8 teams. So there's some real danger out there if you start slipping. So it does put a lot more urgency on that first game and trying to make sure that you win that first game, to know that the second game, you have a little bit more wiggle room. You'd want to take as many points as possible. But if you're talking about a weekend where you end up in OT on the second night, you know that you're walking out with 4 points if you've won on Friday. That's not bad. But if you're in OT on Saturday night and you lost on Friday, you're in a situation where if you lose again, you got 1 out of 6 points. That's not going to cut it in the standing. So it's weird. I think that's why I never was so very supportive of the 3-point structure. I think it puts, almost too much emphasis on regulation wins, whereas an overtime win in hockey, a game that this isn't like basketball where, it's hard to get a game to overtime because you have so many points scored. You don't have enough goals scored. And I can think of some teams that have played 10 or 15 overtime games in the season. And all of those nights, they don't have a chance to get 3 points, even if they're successful in those overtimes.
Yeah, that really changes up the nature of the game. Well, and I think we'll wrap here just with a final thought. I'll get your take on this. A little over 20 years ago, it was a time of flux in Division I men's college hockey with the addition of the CHA and the MAC. And then about 10 years ago, with the imminent arrival of Big Ten and the shuffling that caused, we are in the midst of another time of change in college hockey. The addition of teams, the change in the rules for transfers, and maybe a free agency season with a one-time transfer rule, and growing new programs. We're going to need new leagues. There are new approaches to things. This is another one of those periods of some rapid change.
There's definitely more flux than we've had, for the last decade since, as you mentioned, the shuffle. But this one feels like there's less organization. And geographically, we are more spread out than we ever have been. You're talking about schools in Alaska, Arizona, Alabama, and New York and Minnesota all needing homes right now in terms of conferences. I shouldn't say Minnesota. St. Thomas has a home. But, if you didn't throw in some new schools that are going to be out there, Lindenwood has talked about, getting to Division I very soon. And teams that, schools that do not fit into any of the current conference structures, there's going to be a lot of programs that are spread out massively from a geographic standpoint that are homeless. That is what I think is going to cause the biggest consternation among the college hockey community. I think that people want to help, but people also are looking out for themselves. And when I say people, I mean teams, I mean commissioners, I mean presidents, athletic directors, provosts, all those types of people. So those are the issues that I think face college hockey. And then you add in transfers, 50-year seniors, all that stuff. It makes it a really confusing landscape.
Well, we'll try to cover that landscape on this podcast and at USCHO.com. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Spotlight, a production of US College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.